So hi guys, in the last video you already saw how you can create alphabets for your student. Based on your students, how you can customize the alphabets and give them something really meaningful from that. So from those alphabets, your student is going to have a list of words that he knows. So by now he should have an idea how to form words in English. And then once he's done with that, now is the time to give him his first lesson, something which he is going to remember for a long time. So how do we do that? For doing that, what we're going to target from the very starting is forming sentences. So the whole focus of this lesson plan is going to be how the student can form simple sentences that describe himself or herself. Alright, so how do we do that? Let's see. Okay, so this is, as I said, going to be your first lesson plan which you can deliver to your student. And then, what is the aim of this plan? This is the aim. You're going to teach your students how to introduce themselves. And they are going to introduce themselves under certain grammatical constraints, because as you know, there are a million other ways in which you can introduce yourself. You can talk about your hobbies, you can talk about your employment history, you can talk about your interests, and all these kind of activities require a way advanced knowledge of English grammar to communicate. But right now your student is not at that stage. So we are going to do the introduction for the student. We are going to teach the student how he can introduce himself through very simple grammatical constructs. Alright, so before we do anything, we have to set our vocabulary. So this is the format in which we are going to work. So you have to set a certain vocabulary for the students, and throughout that lesson plan you're only going to work with words which are there in that vocabulary. That's very important. Okay, so how are we going to set the vocabulary? Let's see. That looks a lot. So there are a lot of things right here. So you have your pronouns, you have verbs, you have nouns, you have phrases, you have adjectives, a lot of different things. But if you look at them closely, it's really not that much. For the pronoun side, we only have 7 words. And then for the verbs, we are only going to deal with linking verbs, the 3 of them. And for rest of them, for adjectives, we are going to deal with qualities. For nouns, the nouns related to gender, then the nouns related to profession, then the nouns related to name, place, animal, things, and then phrases which are only your simple prepositional phrases, nothing really complex. So first of all, these are some grammatical terms that you have right here: pronouns, verbs, adjective, nouns, and phrases. So if you don't remember them at the back of your hand right now, so what you could do is you could do a simple Google search and just get the gist as in what these terms are about. So what are personal pronouns, what are linking verbs, what are adjectives which describe qualities, what are nouns which describe gender. So you just need to Google them and get a rough idea about what they are. You don't have to do any kind of detailed search. Just Google this phrase. Let's suppose you don't know what personal pronouns are. Just do a Google search for personal pronouns and you're going to get a lot of content, and just choose the easiest link that you see out there and find out what it is. That being said, this is the vocabulary which you're going to focus for this lesson plan. This is it. This is the vocabulary. And why these first 2 things are bold? Because these are your fixed vocabulary. So you're never going to change this. The rest of these 5 items, these are what you're going to change. These are what you're going to customize and modify based on your student's requirement. Alright, so that's it. So let me just give you how you could do that. For example, your student is, let's say she's a housemaid. So her profession is housemaid. So these first 2 words you could just cancel out. And then you gotta find something which is related to your students and comes in the place of name, place, animal, thing. Let's say your student's name is Raghav. So for the name thing, you have this word here, Raghav. For the place, let's say he's from India. So India comes here. Animal, something which he sees around himself. Tiger, okay. And then thing, so something which is again there around himself. Pencil. So all these words are actually going to come from the surrounding of the student, the surrounding in which the student spends most of his waking hours. So that's very important. So that's how you really have to create those words. So let me repeat the instructions here for you again. So the first two lines, the pronouns and the verbs, these are not going to change. You are not going to add anything here. These 7 words for pronouns and then these 3 words for linking verbs, these are going to stay as it is. For the rest of those categories, adjectives, nouns of gender, profession, all these 5 categories, you are going to completely customize all these words based on the students that you have chosen. So you've already chosen 3 students, just reminding you that. So let's see how we're going to do it. Okay, so let's go to our ebook page. Okay, so this is so right now we are on what page? So we are on the 4th page. In the 4th page, you give a heading called vocabulary, and then you have your student one here, right here. Then you just give whatever student when you chose here, just give his name or describe him, whatever you want here. And then now you just copy this vocabulary thing. You'll find the link for copying this vocabulary list below this video. Similarly, you do for your student too. Oops. Okay. And you just copy paste this default list here. Now you have to start thinking how you're going to customize that. So let's suppose your student is a housemate. So what I can do is just put housemate here, and he's a male. So this male, and he's usually happy, but because he has to work a lot, so he gets tired, and then he's not really sleepy all the time. He's energetic, definitely. He's athletic, sporty, yeah. He's smart, intelligent, not so much, let's say. He's hardworking, yes. And what else about him? He's a charming guy. That's how you do it. So that's your profile for student 1. And now something related, that's his name, that's where he belongs, that's the animal. Let's suppose he sees a mouse around him. So that's, and then he has a pencil around him. So that's how you define the name, place, animal thing. And then the phrases. Like he's from, let's say, Dallas, or he is, what's his age? Maybe he is 15 years old, something of that sort. Similarly, you do a customization for your second student. Think hard. Think what the student really spends his time around. What are the surroundings in which the student lives? And then come up with these words specific to that student type. Alright, so that's the information that is going to go on your 4th page. Let's get back to the slides. So from the 4th page, we have a list of words with us, which we are going to use to create sentences. And now from this list of words, we are going to create sentences. How? That's what you're going to do in your 5th page. You're going to create full legible English sentences that describe the student, that help the student describe himself. How are you going to do it? What's the magic glue? That's it. That's the magic glue. A simple table. A simple table in which you arrange these words under certain categories is what is required for you to teach your students simple sentences that describe himself. Okay, so let's look at what we have here. So we have a 3-column table, and then in the first column what we have is pronouns, and in the second column we have the verbs. What kind of verbs and what kind of pronouns? Let's go back. The personal pronouns, all these 7, and then the linking verbs, these 3. Okay, so that's what we have in the first table, and in the in the first 2 columns, and in the third column is where you get all your interesting stuff in. All these categories what you have here on the last page have been arranged vertically in the third column. So that's the arrangement. So how are you going to form sentences from that? So this, let's say, I am my name, I am Raghav. And the second sentence could be, you are some other name, we are something else. This is the way in which you're going to form sentences. A word from the first column followed by a word from the second column, then a word from the third column. So I is always going to be followed by am and then something from here. They followed by are, something from here. We followed by are, something from here. He followed by is, then something from here. She followed by is and then something from here. Okay, so let's see for we. We are, let's say, what are our current feelings? So we are happy. That works out well. That's fine. She is sad. So that's how this whole word assortment games comes into the picture. You're going to choose different columns from different tables and describe them. So you're going to choose columns from words from different columns in the table and combine them together to form a sentence. Okay, so now the student has to describe himself. So he could say, he could start with his name, I am, whatever his name is, I am Raghav. Then he could tell about his gender, I am a boy. Then he could just say what his gender profession is. Let's say I am a student or I am a housemate, whatever. And then he could also describe his feelings through this table. I am happy at the moment. And then he could give a little bit more, reference about himself. So he could say, I am from, because I'm from Hyderabad in India, then I'll say, I am from Hyderabad. And he could describe his age. I am 25 years old. And some more information. If he's in school, he could say, I am in class 5th. Something of this sort. That's how this table thing works. So with this table, the student would be able to describe himself, like his name, gender, profession, what his current feelings, and something like where he is from, these kind of things. Plus, he can also say the same things for a lot of people around him. Let's say he has a friend around him. So he could say that he is, his friend's name again is, let's say, Lata. So that's the name. So he is Lata. And then the friend is a girl. So he could say, well, friend is again a guy. So he could say he is a male, a boy. Then his friend is a student. So he could say he is a student. And then his friend is tired at the moment. So he would say he is tired. Then similarly, the friend is from, let's say, Bangalore. So he would say he is from Bangalore. So through these table now, there are infinite amount of sentences that you can make based on your requirement. So this table has a lot of potential. So we start with the first column, and the first column is really your subject. And the rest of those 2 columns are right there to help the subject describe himself. So for I gave you an example. For he, I gave you an example. Similarly, if the student wants to describe the objects around him, he could use it. It is, let's say there's a pencil around him. So he could say, it is a pencil. And then something else, maybe there's another object around him, like a tree. Then he could say, it is tree. Like this. Okay, and if the tree is green, then he would say, probably add that quality here, green. It is green. So the possibilities are really endless. You just have to think within these categories here, right here in this yellow column, and then add words based on your students, background, like you did in the vocabulary table. Another thing that you have to remember about this table is that there are a lot of implicit things here which are not really easy to detect. For example, the concept of plurality. So almost all the words that you see here are singular, but there is a plural subject here. They are, a couple of them, they and we. So you probably would have to add a few plural subjects here as well. For example, they are boys, we are girls, something of that sort. We are students, they are maids, something like this. Okay, so that's why I again want to reiterate the fact that the possibilities with this table is just endless. So based on your student, you have to think what are his requirements, what is the background of the student, in what places does he spend most of his time, what is his gender, what is his profession, so what could be his current feelings and qualities, where is he from, what's his, what's his age, and then probably something else about him which fits here. What are the name, place, animal which he sees around, or things which he sees around himself. So the student can really describe a lot using this table. And then obviously once he's done with the I here, he could also go on to the you, the he, she, it, and then the they and the we. So in this way, the student can first of all describe a lot of things about himself. Then he can describe a lot of things about the person who is standing next to him. The group, if there's a guy right here, the third person, he can describe all these things about him. If there's a girl there, a third person, then he can describe something about her. We, the group, if he's part of a group, he can describe about that. They, if he sees a group somewhere around him, he can describe about them as well. So that's why the possibilities are just endless. But you don't have to be bogged down by all the different possibilities. You just gotta figure out, what does your intuition say? What could be your student's current feelings and qualities? Where could be, from where could he really be from, and these kind of things. And based on your intuition, you have to customize this table and then form sentences. So again, let's see how we're going to do that. So in the last, for the last page, we again did it for couple of students, student 1 and 2. So this time again, the table as well, we're going to again form for a couple of students, your first student as well as your second student. So I just copy pasted the table here in our ebook document. Okay, so for the first student, for the second student, right now the table is the same, but again based on your your student, you have to customize this table as I told you. Let's say your student is part of a group which is which is into teaching. So you could say, put a word here as teachers. So what does that mean? We, then your student can say we are teachers. Sounds good. Okay. So this way you have to do a lot of customization, whatever comes to your mind. If nothing comes, then this table is as good as you want, as you would think. Okay, so and the other thing is the words which are coming in this table have to reflect the words which are right there in the vocabulary section. So whatever difference, whatever initial changes you made in the vocabulary section here have to reflect in the table. The words got to be the same, the words and phrases, everything's got to be the same. And once you see this table and then you have some more ideas, this, like I added the teacher word here and something else if you want to add here, if you made some changes here, you again have to go back to your vocabulary and make those changes there as well. So the words in the vocabulary are what we are going to use to create the table as well. So both of them have to reflect the same thing. That's why it's very important. So now again, this table approach is so important, and I again want to give a couple of more minutes, a few more minutes about what are its merits and why is it so central to this kind of teaching, and why it is so extensible and even scalable that you could literally do a lot of things with this. Okay, so these are some of the points that I want to discuss about this table approach. So first of all, you could form sentences from different viewpoints, different angles, as in terms of people. So here, if we go back, we cover all the three persons in English, the first person, the second person, and the third person, using a single table. That's a lot of different people right there. And then the other implicit thing about this table approach is, and probably the most important factor why this is so effective in teaching sentences, is that this table approach is completely visual. So you have your sentences, your sentences represented in fixed structures, tables, and then these tables will somehow remind the student about maths, about their unitary mathematic kind of tables. For example, let's say the price of one apple is 50 rupees. So how many price of, let's say, 5 apples is 50 rupees. So how many apples would you get in 10 rupees? These kind of things. So those kind of calculation you always present in tabular form. And that's why with this table approach, the child connects the student, the child, or whoever is your learner, is your student. He connects this English with his mathematical learning. So in generally, people are much better at maths than they are at learning languages. That's the general trend. So everybody can do a little bit of basic addition and subtraction and has seen tables in some form of the or other in mathematics. So that's why when you do that connect, when you present the sentences in the visual form of tables, then you create a connect between learning sentences and what he has learned in mathematics, and this connection really helps the student remember a lot because of this connection, and they find it, so their learning curve becomes a lot, the steepness goes, so it really becomes very gradual. So it's not, they don't really have to exert a lot of efforts to learn this table approach because they're already doing this in maths. Okay, the third point is again an extension of the second point, that because of this table approach, students develop language intuition quite easily. So intuition is very much required whenever you want to learn new language. So all the the first speakers of a language, the Americans and the people from United Kingdom, so they have this language intuition wherein they already know as in whether a sentence is right or wrong without even knowing the grammatical, whatever grammar is going on behind the scenes. They just know it based on their intuition because of their exposure to the language and the kind of expressions and phrases which they find being used around themselves. So they just know that this phrase or this sentence is right or wrong, if it sounds right or sounds wrong. So even the second language users, your students basically have to develop this intuition somewhere down the line so that they are able to compete with the first language users. So this table approach really makes it easier to develop that intuition. The fourth point is that this table approach is also very useful for the student in the sense that if he has multiple teachers, then all of the teachers can teach him English while not wasting on what the previous teacher did. So they can build their lesson plans on top of the previous teacher's lesson plans because it's all modular. So one lesson plan, as we discussed, this lesson plan is just about this table. The next lesson plan is going to be about another table, like that. So each of the table could be taught by different teachers and works out well. And similarly, the fifth point is an extension of the fourth point in the sense that revision becomes very easily because of the modular nature of the lesson plans. Okay. And then the sixth point is that because of all these advantages, this table approach is very popular with the students whom I've taught and with the different teachers who to whom I gave this curriculum to follow. They also found that this lesson, this approach of teaching students through table is very, very beneficial. So it works out well, and it's quite easy for the students to remember. So that was a long video. About right now we are probably in the 25th minute, and just to create those 2 pages of content. But it's very important that once you start thinking of English in terms of sentences and then sentences in terms of tables, then for the student as well, it becomes very, very easy. So now at the end of this lesson, what you have taught your student is that now he can describe a lot about himself in English, and he can describe similar things about people around him in English. So you have basically, even if let's say you have an hour with the student, you spend an hour, in that hour you just draw the table in front of the student and make him learn a few common sentences that he can form using this table. Then also you've done a lot that is really going to help the student. You initiated a lot of sentences for the student by just drawing this table and explaining to him how he could form sentences. So this table in itself does a lot of work. It is an encapsulation of a lot of hundreds of different sentences, commonly formed sentences. Okay, so on that note, I want to end this video, and probably below the video you'll find a lot of different interesting things, so do check them out. And in the next video we are just going to deal with different approaches in which you can teach this table. So I hope you are clear with creating your 4th and 5th pages of your ebook around this table approach. Okay, see you guys. Thank you.